So we're in Tampa, Florida, and my name is Cherie Adkins, and I'm a captain with Tampa Police Department, and I've been here since 1984. What's a 5'1" female with a bachelor's degree in psychology who's never seen the real world being a police officer? And truly that's how I was greeted by a lot of the old timers that were out there teaching at the academy. So I had an uphill battle from there to really establish being a police officer. I took a lot of extra classes and became a child abuse investigator. A traffic reconstructionist is one who has specialty in investigating fatality crashes or crashes of great significance. And also a field training officer, meaning you're going to train new officers that are coming through. So then in 5 years I was promoted to corporal. I went as a detective to sex crimes and child abuse, and that's what I investigated for about 2 years. Then I went to the homicide division, and I was the first female homicide detective that Tampa Police Department had. Then from 2 years after that I was promoted to sergeant. Back on the street and had the entire east side of town, which is a really rough area, and I had 11 officers, and I was a field training sergeant or supervisor for 7 years. And from there I got asked to go to internal affairs, and then I investigated police officers for 2 years, then went back to the street and became a midnight shift commander, promoted to lieutenant, and then from there I was promoted to captain about 3 years later, and went to major crimes and supervised all like robbery, homicide, sex crimes, child abuse, auto theft, hit and run fatalities, those kind of things. So that was my division along with the forensic unit. And then 2 years ago I got transferred to this division where I am now, which is the Special Operations Bureau. And under me now is air service, all our motor units, our DUI units, our canine units, our mounted patrol units, our marine units, our special incident management unit, which does all special events. You know, I teach at the police academy, that I teach CPR as well. I've been a police academy instructor for 15 years or longer. So I've taught defensive tactics, I've taught fitness at the academy, street tactics, street safety. I had to do a death notification, for example. A woman who'd been married over 50 years. Her husband was working part-time somewhere, just doing little handy stuff. He died of a heart attack on scene. And I remember going to the scene as a supervisor. And I took his wedding band, and I took his watch. And I knew what I was getting ready to have to do. I go and knock on the door, and he always came home for lunch. And instead of him coming home, it was me. It's very difficult to do. You know, everybody goes, well, that's what cops do. We're still human and we still have hearts. I knock on the door. She opens it and she goes, where's John? Where's John? I said, can I come in? And I've got this tucked in my hand. Can I come in? Can I come in? Yeah, okay. And over her shoulder, I see a little table with the lunch set up, a little flower in the middle. Very routine, obviously, for them. And I have to sit down with her and I have to tell her, you know, that I just left so-and-so's office and he had a heart attack. And I grabbed her hand and I put her hand in mine and I opened it up and I put the wedding band in her hand and a watch. I spent the next 4 hours at her house because that's how important it is. They didn't have children, no close family. I asked about a church. I finally found a parishioner to come help. We looked at photos, we talked about him, I helped her contact a funeral service, all these things that need to get done. But I don't know that a male officer would have spent that much time. I felt her vulnerability, I felt her fear, everything that went along with losing a lifelong partner, and I felt it was important to stay, and I stayed with her all afternoon. And you know what? 3 months later, she sent me a thank you card. She lost her husband and she sent me a thank you card. That's what I think women bring to the department. He will tell you, he rode with me on a midnight shift when I had 4 years on. I said, Dad, you need to come see what I'm doing. So Mr. Executive from IBM flies in and rides with me. And let's see, we went to a woman who died in her home call. Same kind of, not that kind of circumstance that I described, but you know, I had to help through everything, check the body, and then do the funeral arrangements, that kind of stuff. We went to a person who was lying about their house broken in, so he got to see me be a little interrogator. All kinds of calls that night, up to a complete riot on the causeway with somebody stabbed, and 3 guys that are getting ready to fight again. And here's little old me stepping up and telling them, in my own words, well, I don't know how graphic you want me to get, you know, that they're going to stay the way they are and they're not going to fight. And here's my dad having to stand back and watch little old me stop this whole thing. Very difficult for my father, mind you. But he put law enforcement perspective in a civilian terms. And this is what he said to me. I never knew that police officers had to wear so many different hats in one night. You had to be an interrogator, a counselor, a traffic person, a legal person, a wrestling monitor, you know, all these different things. You had to fight, you had to argue, you had to act, you had to do all these things and know so much information about so many things. So I have a whole different perspective about what law enforcement does and who they are. Because in his generation, we were the blue-collar workers and the grunts out there, and he realized that is not what police officers do at all. So he has a deep, profound respect now for law enforcement. And then I'm also on the board of directors for the Spring, which is the domestic violence shelter for the Hillsborough County area. The Spring is the largest domestic violence shelter in the state of Florida. They even have a school inside their shelter. It's very, very good. And they not only have the intake where we take victims for escaping from their perpetrator, but then they also have counseling, inside and out, and they have transitional housing, so that way a victim, once they get there, can stay until they're actually done with the system and then actually get them on their own again. What we do in Tampa Police Department is, once you get that position, you have it until you retire. If something happens and they need a police officer right away, I'm the liaison to go there, to also handle any security things for any events that they're having as well, and also to provide guidance as far as any law changes or prosecutory issues that need someone to kind of follow through with things. I'm in graduate school to go be an elementary school teacher, leave this world behind and do something totally different. So still interacting and helping, but what it is that I want to take all those years of learning and teach it to the little ones, teach them about life, about how to learn to adapt, and to give them the skills of not just how to read and write, but to really live fully, to want to grasp everything and learn how does it work, or how do I help people do this? There's a number of things. My mind goes crazy with what all I want to give to them when I get to that position in life. There's been so many things in my life that the police department and being a police officer has changed me, has made me go through valleys and mountains and up and down. I would have to say there has to be some kind of divine intervention, because when you do this job for as long as we do it, it can't help but change you, and for you to get a bigger perspective on life and to see people at their worst and people at their best. People just call me, Cherie, don't you remember when such and such, when you did this? Now we've got to return the favor, we've got to pay it forward for you. And I think that's what life is about. Life is about, I'm giving you today because tomorrow I'm going to be there, you're going to be there for me. And I think that's what's really, really important about life, and that's what the police department and all the things that I've been involved in really, really makes who somebody is.